It's been a while since I've seen you all, so I figured I would make a quick guest appearance here. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody enjoyed their spring break. I can tell you that I am more than enjoying my time at home with my wife and my beautiful son Jackson. So I miss you guys, but not that much. Being at home with my wife and kid is pretty awesome. But I did want to make sure that I got this project to you and that I explained it to you so that you knew exactly what was expected. Uh, you've been studying taxonomy and classification, which is really just understanding the different types of species that really exist, right? We need to be able to identify them as being unique species from one another. We need to understand what resources we have available to us. We need to be able to identify different plant species, different animal species, different insect species from one another so that we can protect them, we can conserve them for generations to come, so that people like my son Jackson can enjoy all of the things in nature that you and I get to enjoy every day. So that's what the importance of taxonomy is. And you guys are going to be becoming taxonomists in this summative project. Okay, so this is how we're wrapping up our unit. If you go to Blackboard, and then you go to Labs and Activities, there's a folder that says Taxonomy, so we want to go there. And then we want to go to Labs and Activities. And the project that you guys are going to be working on is called the Creature feature. So go ahead and click on that. Okay, so what your job is going to be is to become a taxonomist. You are going to be making some very specific observations of some very unique looking organisms, and you are going to have to identify some distinguishing characteristics. You're going to have to name these things using binomial nomenclature, the two-name naming system, using Latin sounding names. Okay, you're going to have to come up with kingdoms, phylums, genuses, and species for these different organisms. And you're going to have to categorize them into those different classification schemes based on the characteristics that you observe. Okay? And then at the very end, you're going to go ahead and you're going to construct a dichotomous key for me, which you guys have been using in class and you have plenty of examples of to refer to in order to make sure that you're doing it well. Okay? So, this is what I am looking for from you. If you scroll down, there's a number of different creatures here, right? There's 10 different creatures. And they all have some very distinguishing characteristics that make them look different from one another. Okay? What your job is going to be is to go ahead and give these different creatures names, okay, based on their characteristics, and then you're going to have to classify them into the different kingdoms, phylums, genuses, and species, okay, like the instructions would say up here. And I try to give you an outline for what that might look like. It says the first step you might want to do is just group your creatures into two large categories using some broad and general characteristics, okay. So you might go ahead and say, well, there's some animal-looking things and there's some robot-looking things. Separate those guys out. Okay? Once you have those guys separated, then break up those two groups into even smaller categories. Okay? So you might say, well, some of my robots have round bodies and some of them have square bodies. Okay? So go ahead and break those guys up. Okay, and some of my animals have feathers and some of them don't. Okay, so what you're doing is you are breaking all of these different organisms up into very specific groups based on their characteristics. Once you've done that, then you're going to want to go ahead and you're going to want to name them, right, based on their characteristics. So, for example, this guy has very large teeth, so you might name him Large Eye Teethus. Okay, a two-name naming system that's kind of Latin sounding. Right. That might sound difficult, but I've put together some resources for you. If you go ahead and you go back to Blackboard, it says naming help, Latin roots. Okay. In naming these guys, you can use all of these different Latin roots here that are available to you to give them very specific Latin sounding names. Okay, so maybe you want to talk about the hand of one of the robots. Well, right here you can see that there is a word for that, or a prefix for hand in Latin, and it's cur, C-H-I-R. Okay, or maybe you want to talk about how one of these guys has a cone-shaped head. Okay, so you would use coni for cone. So you can use these scientific root word prefixes and suffixes document to help you come up with very specific Latin sounding names. Remember, they need to be two parts, genus and species. Okay. Once you've named them and once you've grouped them, then your job is going to actually be to create a dichotomous key to help me identify them. Okay, so I did this project when I was a freshman, and therefore I know that it's you are very capable of doing this. It's very possible for you to do this as well. Right? So the project I did was a little bit different, but what I'm asking you to do is relatively similar. You're going to be doing this project on paper and pencil. I don't want you doing it on Notability. I want you to do it on paper and pencil, and you're going to turn it in on paper and pencil. Okay? So just keep that in mind. We're not doing this digitally. All right? So based on the picture of the organism that I've provided for you, I had to draw them when I was your age in doing this project. I've already given you the picture. So based on the picture of the organism that is provided to you, you have to give it a name. So that name should match its physical characteristics, and it should be two parts and Latin sounding. So I named this guy Blood Eye Succum, right? Because it looks like a mosquito, so it sucks blood. Blood Eye Succum. Okay. So I gave it its Latin sounding name. Right? You need to go ahead and you need to do that based on its physical characteristics. That is what would earn you a 1 on this project, is if you can name these guys using descriptive Latin sounding names. Okay. After that, then you need to go ahead and you have to categorize these different organisms into their kingdom, their phylum, their genus, and their species based on their physical traits. Okay. So for each of my species, I had to go ahead and do that. So one of my species was Rati whippum. Okay. And its kingdom was in the kingdom Talum, phylum was in Circuli, genus Rati, species whippum. You need to do this for each of your species, each of your organisms. You need to categorize them like this. Give them a classification scheme. The the document that you make for this should be maybe done in Google Drive and printed off and turned in, all stapled together in a packet, but it should be organized similar to this. That's level 2. Okay, level 3 is you need to go ahead and you need to actually create a dichotomous key. Use the examples that I've provided for you as a way to help you make these. Okay, but you're going to pick out distinguishing characteristics, so has a tail, has no tail, and you're going to use those distinguishing characteristics to help me identify those species that you've identified and named. Okay, I would, when you're done, make sure that somebody else reads it, make sure that somebody else uses it, make sure that it works. Okay, but here's an example of the dichotomous key that I made when I was your age. Okay, that is what you're going to do for a level 3. And for your level 4, you are going to be justifying for me why you named your species the way that you named them, and why you categorize them into the different kingdoms, phylums, genuses, and species based on their characteristics. Describe to me what these different characteristics are and why you categorize them the way that you did. Okay, so here's an example of that. That would be your level 4, justifying your taxonomic scheme. Okay, so be specific here, be creative, have fun, use your examples appropriately, use your peers to help you make sure that you've done a good job with this. This is a summative project. It's how we're wrapping up this unit. And you want to make sure that you spend some time and use your time wisely here. Okay, don't slack off, because if you fall behind, it's going to be very difficult to get it done. Right? I'm excited to see what type of creative things that you guys come up with, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.